Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. We are Team Facetrace, and my name is Jason. And joined by me today are Caleb, Zael, Jason, and Michael. And our advisor is Dr. Dobbins. And so to get started right away, we'll just dive straight into a demo. As you can see here, everything is already set up for us. And so let's first demonstrate the sign up functionality. And here you can sign up as a user. So let me make a user called Jason J, and the password be Jason J. And I believe this will cause an error due to the fact that, yep, the password length isn't long enough. So I will now make my password Jason Jang instead. Perfect. And what happens if I try to sign up with the same username again is that it will, oh, sorry, it will say the username already exists. And yeah, we can head straight into the demo. So Jason Jang, log in, and this is our dashboard. And so as you can see here, this is our UI. At the top right, we can switch between dark blue, dark mode, and light mode. I'm going to stick with dark blue because dark blue is my favorite mode. And we also have a camera list with main entrance and side entrance. And this would change according to a business's needs. So if you have like a giant business with multiple entrances or multiple areas of surveillance, this would change, obviously, and we have multiple cameras. But for now, we only have two cameras for the sake of demonstration. And also it'll anytime like a person is detected or like a dangerous person is detected, it'll show up here and you can deal with that like in any way you see fit. And then also you can see the view alert logs. This is a logout button, which I'll demonstrate later. And then yeah, there's a people count alerts today, and it currently shows that recording is inactive. And here I'll start stream. And as you can see, this is me. And so what's happening here is that there are multiple bounding boxes, and it might seem a little confusing at first, but it's honestly just like our software trying to detect different objects slash people. And so in this case, as you can see here, the people count is one, which coincides with me. I am a person. And what happens in our backend is that our database actually keeps track of this person. I'm known as person zero, and how it keeps track of it is based on the facial recognition software. And we have a facial recognition software that serves two purposes. One is to determine the emotional state of a person, and another is to keep track of who they actually are. So let's say theoretically that we had multiple cameras, we could keep track of one person across multiple cameras and assess their threat levels in that way. Additionally, we are also able to keep track of the weapon. And so as you can see here, it's detecting a knife, and every time it's turning red, it's saying this is a threat. And again, this is a threat. And it's able to associate the knife with a person, which was really difficult, but it was like I think the most interesting part of our project, which was like associating the person with the object and being able to keep track of that. And finally, we have body pose estimation, which is the final variable in our threat detection system. And what body pose does is that it will determine the current pose of whoever is being recorded. And based off of that information, we can then see, okay, are they a threat based on the body estimation? Can we estimate that, are they aggressive? Are they feeling relaxed, etc.? And so combining those three models, we are able to generate a threat score. And another functionality is that we can also do full screen, and we can also obviously stop the stream. And finally, we can log out. And yeah, that is our demonstration. So now back to the slideshow.
Yeah, so my name's Caleb, and during this project, I had basically two main roles. And these roles were both to be one of the main backend developers and one of the project managers. In terms of backend development, a lot of what I had to do was implement two out of three of our models, find out how to implement them, where to find them, and then how to improve the accuracy on them. And in addition to improving the models and working on just the model logic in general, I was also in charge of the database schema. So a lot of our database entities and their schemas were written by me, as well as their relationships, which took took a decent amount. It was a little bit difficult to do, especially with the scope of the project that we're doing. Um, for example, one of the database entities that I made was a threat entity. So how do we actually associate a threat? What are the columns that should go into that? And how does it interact with other relationships like a user or an admin, for example? Um, I also helped a little bit with the Figma designs on the front end, but I actually did not do any of the actual front end development, more just designing. Um, as well as doing database development on the back end. So another thing I did on the back end was actually creating a person state, as Jason mentioned. How do we actually associate a weapon, a face, and then pose results to be associated with like the same object? So one of the most recent implementations we made is actually having some type of state management across a frame, which is actually an issue we were having before. We were just detecting weapons and detecting faces, but we weren't actually like associating that with the same person. So we kind of just had these results floating. It was spaghetti code really. That was kind of how it was. There was no really like object relationship. So a lot of what I did was implement that and try to help us keep track of people states, detect if they're threats. Jason wrote a lot of the logic for the ensemble learning, so actually taking in the three results, and then I wrote the logic for storing those in the database, or at least just writing out the schema for those to be stored in the database. In addition to these things, the two models that I found were the face detection model and the body pose detection model. The face detection model was a pre-trained model from a library called deep learning, and then pose detection was just another YOLO V8 model that we chose to go with. I did help improve the accuracy of those a little bit, um, which was also pretty difficult. And outside of models and database schemas, the other things I developed were just additional API routes and services, the big one being authentication. So I actually wrote the entire authentication and wrote how we were going to roll our own auth and lay down the project structure for the backend. So how were we going to keep track of schemas, models, entities, what libraries we were going to use? We use Pydantic, SQL Alchemy. Um, Things like that. So that, oh, and Alembic for database migrations. But that was mostly my role on this project, and that's really it for me. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Sael. I am one of another backend developer on this project, and the main thing I worked on was the streaming functionality. So in the demo, we saw getting his video there and handling a lot of the core stream handling in the backend and supporting multiple camera video streaming. That is all stuff I worked on. I also did a lot of the end-to-end testing for this video streams. As you know, like having multiple streams, sometimes that caused issues. So I was there debugging that, fixing that, making sure everything ran smoothly. And I also worked on some of the front end features. So I developed a full screen button to maximize the camera screen so you don't have to just look at that small screen. And I also worked on the sizing of the screen when it's not in full screen to make sure it's a proper size.
All right, thank you. As I mentioned before, I am Jason and I'm another backend developer, and I was also responsible for testing. And so my key focuses on this project were the object and weapon detection models. So I was primarily responsible for like implementing the pre-trained model that we found and being able to differentiate between an object and a weapon, but also being able to split weapons into different categories, such as a knife, a gun, um, maybe like nunchucks in a very unique case. But yeah, that was my main focus. As Kayla mentioned, I also did the ensemble learning approach, and so that was primarily combining the facial detection model, the body pose model, and the weapon detection model to generate a threat score. And so using this threat score, this will not only send an alert to the front end or whoever is currently looking at our app, but it would also store it in the database. And additionally, I did a lot of unit testing. So with the unit testing, I did primarily testing for the backend, so making sure the model worked properly, making sure our streaming was working, making like just testing different scenarios which could potentially break our model or our code, sorry. Yeah. And finally, my last role in this project, the most recent thing I did was the improving the streaming connection between the front and back end, which Jason and Michael can both talk more about.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm primarily responsible for the Figma design of the project as well as implementing the Figma into our front end pages. So I have designed like the login page, the sign up page. I also like revamped the dashboard with the help from Caleb to which is what you got see in the demo how the dashboard looks. I also implemented a color changing feature just in case the user want to switch to any other mode that's other than like light mode. And then another part I kind of did was kind of like set up the navigation in the front end so like the login page can navigate easily to sign up page and then sign up page back to login and then login go to dashboard. And that's pretty much why I have contributed to this project. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael, and my primary responsibility was kind of UI development and testing. So a lot of my key focus was front-end, back-end integration, front-end, back-end connection. So one of the main things I did was I made it so that the back-end and the front-end actually talked. So a lot of the pages that Jason developed, I took and I would take their input and then I would link them up kind of with the API calls that Caleb was writing for the backend. I was also making sure that input and output were matching, or if they weren't, I was processing the input and output to make sure they did match so that they properly work together. I also developed the software architecture schema, which helped in the developmental phase of this project. And I did a lot of integration testing while coding integration to basically check if the system between front end and back end worked fully well. I also implemented back end to front end real-time video streaming. So Zael worked on the full integration where it was like multi-camera support, single camera support, but the part of the video streaming I worked on was creating a WebSocket from the backend server to the front-end server to ensure that we could get the video out with the bounding boxes with all the visuals that we were putting onto the models and then displaying it on the actual front page of our front-end website. And finally, the last thing I got to work on was login, logout functionality. So essentially, when we log in, we have a JWT token, which Caleb coded and implemented. And so when reading this on the front end, I needed to figure out authentication on the front end to make sure we're allowed to visit a certain page or whether we're not allowed. And then also, once we log out, to remove said JWT token. So yeah, thank you. And that is our project.